Hey guys, Baron here. Now, I don't know about you, but ever since Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee came out in November, I've been thinking about when and where is this game set? How does it relate to every other game in the Pokemon timeline? Well, that is what we're going to cover today. And I warn you, there are going to be spoilers in this video. So if you haven't played the games or don't want to be spoiled in general, just click off now. But with that being said, I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please hit that like button, subscribe button, and share this video with a friend or two. With that being said, let's get into it. Now, in order to understand the concept of this video, I feel like we should first cover the concepts of the different timelines in the Pokemon universe. Now, as we learn in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, there exists a multitude of different timelines in the Pokemon world, namely two in the main series canon. Essentially, to give some background to the whole theory and the whole concept, is that many years ago, there was a great Pokemon war. Now, in this war, essentially, people and Pokemon fought till the very death, and it really has some really negative consequences, leading to many casualties. One of these casualties was a Floette, owned by and being the best friend of an old king, and he was one of the casualties that died in the war. Filled with rage and anguish, the ancient king created an ancient weapon which fired up into the skies and went down to earth again. It led to the death of many Pokemon, and the war is eventually stopped because of it. Now, what is interesting about this is that the shatters that were created by this weapon created two timelines. One where Mega Evolution exists, and one where the weapon was never fired, never creating the Mega Evolutions, and therefore not having these Megas. Now, what I initially thought was that the Let's Go timeline was occurring in one of these two different time streams, but I have a different theory today, and that is that the Let's Go timeline is a third distinct timeline from the other two. One factor that proves this is the occurrence of the characters Red, Green, and Blue in the games. Now, granted, Red and Blue do appear in the Mega and the non-Mega timeline, but they have a few different distinct characteristics that are different in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. One of these is that they have completely different teams. Now, in, for example, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you encounter Red. He has a Pikachu, a Lapras, a Snorlax, a Venusaur, a Charizard, and a Blastoise. However, in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, he has a different team. Now, granted, he still has Pikachu, Lapras, Snorlax, and Venusaur. However, his Blastoise and Charizard are instead replaced by Machamp and Arcanine. The same can be said about Blue, who has a different team to what he has in the original timelines. If we look at the team he uses in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, that consists of Pidgeot, Arcanine, Alakazam, Machamp, Exeggutor, Gyarados, Aerodactyl, Tyranitar, and Rhyperior that he interchanges. However, in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, his final team consists of Tauros, Alakazam, Gyarados, Exeggutor, Aerodactyl, and a Mega Charizard Y. Now, you might argue that Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee might be a continuation of a timeline, for example the non-Mega and the Mega timeline. I, however, think that is untrue because of this factor, that the teams of Red and Blue are completely different. Now, why would it change their entire teams between the periods of them appearing as more of an adult version of themselves in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and between the canon of Red and Blue and the original games? I don't really see the point why it would just interchange the teams like that. You can also look at location factors, with, for example, the Safari Zone not being there, and it instead being replaced by the Go Park. Now, here you might argue that the Safari Zone was just replaced simply by the Let's Go Park, but I don't think that's the case either, seeing that the Pokemon that usually are found in the Safari Zone are instead scattered in different areas around Kanto. And seeing that in the original timeline, the Safari Zone was instead placed in Johto, and going by that logic, all the Pokemon that were in the Safari Zone would be placed there, because the point is that the Safari Zone is really for conservation purposes. So I don't really see how these Pokemon that would be super rare in the wild to begin with, because you can find them outside the safari, so many of them, like for example Chansey, Dratini, and other Pokemon. I don't really see why they would be scattered around the region, kind of pointing towards them not surviving because they're not adapted to the regular ecosystem. And just in terms of the basic game mechanics, you can see that it's very, very different to any other game that we've experienced. For example, how you capture Pokemon is very, very different. You just throw a Pokeball. Or how you find overworld creatures in the wild. That is not how we usually experience the ability to catch Pokemon. And if your argument would be that this timeline would be a continuation of the Mega timeline, then you gotta ask yourself, since Red and Blue appear in the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon games, then why did these mechanics not exist in those games? If they would be in the same timeline, surely the ideas and basic foundations of the game would be the same, right? And this game is not the same as all the other games. It's very, very different. It's very, very distinct. So my only conclusion is that it is indeed a different timeline. It would explain a lot. For example, the game mechanics. For example, the appearance of the characters being the same but slightly different, and how some of the basic locations in the game are not there anymore and instead replaced by something else with no mention of there ever being anything else. And I do think I've reached a conclusion here, and that is that these games, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, are in fact placed in the manga universes. Now, that might be kind of obvious to some of you people that have kind of had the same idea, but I think just because of how the teams are composed, for example with Red, Blue, and Green, how those teams correlate exactly to what they use in the mangas. And essentially, I mean, what they look like and what the character designs are like in the mangas. That makes a lot of sense. And although, of course, Mega Evolutions did not appear in the original mangas, since this was placed in Generation 1 at the time, and at that time they didn't have the idea of Mega Evolutions. What's to say that they had thought that later? I mean, we see all kinds of crazy experiments in the mangas. We see, for example, Pokemon fusing into a single one. So what's to say that some scientists in the future, in that timeline, would not think of Mega Evolutions? And since the creature's basic biology and basic construction what would be the same in both universes, I think that the Mega Evolutions would look exactly the same too. It only makes sense. And furthermore, we can draw the conclusion that Pokemon Go is placed in this timeline, with having the same mechanics and being, of course, linked to the Pokemon Let's Go games. With, for example, you being able to transfer Pokemon from Pokemon Go to the Go Park. And where do I think this game takes place if you compare it to all the other timelines? Well, if we would consider that all the timelines are indeed parallel and take place at the exact same time and run parallel to each other, then I definitely think that this game takes place somewhere between Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I would personally place Red and Blue's age somewhere between 11 and 19, and that would probably be 13 or 14, meaning that the games take place around 3 or 4 years after the original Pokemon Yellow games. Seeing at this point, Red and Blue were both 10 years old, or 11 years old, or however you want to define it. So my guess, if we would sync this up to the original timeline, is that it would take place sometime parallel to either Crystal or Platinum, or sometime after that, between that and Black and White. That is my guess. What do you think? So guys, that is going to cover for this theory. Now, what do you think? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you have any different thoughts? Let us know in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts and to get a discussion going. Also, of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and share this video with a friend or two. With that being said, I'm gonna get the hashtag out of here. Thank you guys for checking out the video. Before, until, and after seeing you next time though, stay awesome.